Damage attenuation is something that's been an annoyance to many players in Warframe, and the devs over at D have heard our complaints with it, and we're getting some changes to give us that power fantasy satisfaction that we all love and play Warframe for, but still maintaining a certain level of difficulty you'd expect from higher end content. First, let's quickly do a super layman's explanation on what damage attenuation is for those who have no idea. Super simply explained, it's a special kind of adaptation for elite enemies, mini-bosses, and bosses, where the more damage you deal to them over a short period of time, the less damage you'll end up dealing with each hit, which in theory makes these bosses actually bosses and more difficult to kill rather than speed bumps in our path. In reality, what it's done is turn some of these enemies into bullet sponges, which neither the devs or the players are super happy about, so they're changing it. So what's changing with DA? There's 5 main points that Pablo went over in his video, and I definitely recommend watching that when you get the chance, but let's quickly summarize it for you here today. Firstly, there's not going to be any flat damage numbers attached to it like it is currently, so you could only deal X amount of damage with each shot. But rather post-patch it'll be based on a percentage, which should really increase our overall damage to these enemies. Secondly, DA is getting standardized across enemies, as right now each boss and enemy who has DA has its own bit of a weird version of it, which should make the mechanics something more predictable for players to deal with rather than having to remember if this is the boss that you want X stat on your weapon or not. Thirdly, the attenuation threshold, as in when it starts to affect your damage, is being changed so that it'll start to mitigate your damage later into your damage dealing rather than right away as soon as you start dealing damage. Now, as a trade-off to those, they're increasing the health of these enemies, as DA is going to be scaling off of enemy health now, which will allow them to increase or decrease the difficulty of an encounter by increasing their health and thus DA, allowing them to still have some granular control over the encounters while still maintaining the consistency of that previously mentioned standardization. Pablo said that this is going to be based on their idea of what the target gear of the player encountering this normally is, meaning that increasing your gear level through Forma and higher end mods will actually help you deal damage to these enemies, rather than just means that you hit that attenuation much faster, making build crafting that much more important for the end game, which I'm super jazzed about. And the last major thing is that in multiplayer, currently DA affects the whole squad once it kicks in, but post-update it'll be on an individual basis, meaning that each player will have their own DA, so to say, that they can work against, allowing for much more enjoyable squad-based gameplay. Now the kicker to this all is that, as they said themselves, it's not going to be a perfect system as soon as it launches, and it's going to be a collaborative effort between the players and the devs' wants and expectations, so it'll be an ongoing process to ensure that we're having fun with the new DA but still maintaining a level of challenge. One thing to keep in mind with this is that they said in the dev workshop this is almost certainly going to change the meta of the game, especially with certain activities. So make sure to test out a bunch of different options, builds, weapons, and frames, and give them your constructive feedback on the forums so that they can take into consideration how to improve the system over time. They're expecting to need to change things with this. Give them time and they'll adjust it as they go. I'm sure that I've missed something in the intricacies and the spaghetti that is damage attenuation and these changes, so please leave a comment if you think I've missed something critical or got something completely incorrect, and I'll do my best to compile everything into a pinned comment on YouTube, and as always, sub for more tips and swing by my stream if you need any help.